Hey everybody. So this week's Parsha and a couple Parshas afterwards deal with the long saga of Joseph and his brothers, the friction that was created between him and his brothers, all the various things that went on there in terms of their jealousy of him, selling him into slavery, and his phenomenal rise to power, and ultimately taking care of his brothers in Egypt. Now, these stories, they're a reflection of Maseh Avot Siman Labanim. All of the book of Genesis is kind of a microcosm of what's going to happen, not just to mankind in general, but to the Jewish people in particular. And so whereas the earlier events concerning Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and their wives a lot of times dealt with outside parties, here the story between Joseph and his brothers and the conflict represents and reflects the internal struggles, the difficulties, the lack of unity that will take place within the Jewish people and that we're forever trying to fix and do better at. So once again, the very, very first clan, the first family of the Jewish people, once they became numerous, they suffered from this lack of unity, from this jealousy, from this discord, from this anger with one another, which is something that we Jewish people need to work on and fix and continue to do that. So here's a little lesson in how we can, to give you a little personal lesson. I just came back from Toronto. I was there last weekend. Every year our family has a Hanukkah, or in this case pre-Hanukkah get-together. And planning my trip, I looked ahead to see, are the Toronto Maple Leafs going to have a home game, and maybe I can go. And sure enough, yes, on Sunday, the Hanukkah party taking place 1:30 last Sunday, the Leafs dropped the puck at 5 o'clock. I could make it in time if I go straight from the party. They're hosting the Buffalo Sabres, bit of an early start, 5 o'clock. Tickets in Toronto are very expensive. But I went on and I found and I discovered what they call the selfie seat. Yeah, seats. One single solitary seat. You don't sit with anybody. You go there alone. And the price is less than half. So I snapped up one of those decent seats. And it happened to be right behind me. There was another one of these available selfie seats. So I told my nephew about it. And he bought it. And so we were going to go together. The day of Sunday, though, I didn't sleep great the night before. And also, I didn't want to leave the party early because after I did come for, that Hanukkah party, and so I wasn't totally in the mood for going. And I know you might find that surprising because you know how much I love hockey. And let's face it, I don't get too many opportunities to watch the Toronto Maple Leafs, my favorite team, at home in Toronto. And Toronto, like Montreal, is one of the hockey centers of the universe. I mean, centers of the hockey universe as opposed to hockey centers of the universe, center of the hockey universe. So this was a phenomenal opportunity. And so I said to my brother, Sid, Sid, why don't you go with Adam? Adam is his son. Adam's my nephew. Why don't you two? I'll give you the seat, the ticket, you go. He wasn't so sure. He was a bit reluctant. He ended up going. He had the greatest time. He had the most fantastic time. And there's two lessons here. One is, I got so much joy and pleasure knowing that my brother went to that game with his son. I know I would have had a great time at the game. But I know that I had got more pleasure not going to the game and giving that opportunity to my brother to go to the game with his son. That was a much more deeper and more meaningful pleasure than being at the game. And the other point here is I know my father was looking down from Shamayim, from heaven, and smiling. Because my father and mother, they always said the greatest pleasure that they get is when they see their children getting along and helping each other. And I know as a father, one of the greatest pleasures I get is when I see one of my children helping one of my other kids without me asking them taking the initiative and helping each other out. That is the greatest thing a parent could feel. That's the greatest thing that God feels when he sees his people, his Jewish people, helping each other, looking out for one another, and assisting each other. That's how we could do a tikkun. That's how we could fix the animosity and the disagreement and the hatred that Joseph had with his brothers, is by following this pattern of helping each other, looking out for one another, and not waiting for someone to ask us, being there for our brothers and sisters. That will fix what was missing amongst Joseph and his brothers. Have a good Shabbat.